Do you ever wonder why it's so hard to say no? No to family and friends, no to sweets, and even no to our notifications. I watched a talk recently where one of the most influential people in the world was talking about his creative success at one of the most innovative companies in the world. And the secret to his success had something to do with this one word:
Oh, Papi, can I borrow your sketchbook?
no. And I'm going to share a little bit more with you on what he said and who that was. But first, I think one of the reasons why it's hard to say no is because of guilt. In some cases, you just don't want to let the person down. And especially as a Christian, I find that we often, we want to help everyone. But here's the thing is that trying to help every single person that approaches you asking for creative help just isn't realistic. And if I could be honest, from my experience, a lot of times it just leads to disappointment. Not long ago, I had somebody approach me and ask me for help with a creative project. And while I knew that I had the creative ability to do the job for them, I knew that I didn't have the time to do the job for them. So instead of feeling guilty for not doing the project, I realized that had I said yes to doing the job, I wouldn't have been able to provide them with the level of quality and value that attracted them to my work in the first place. You know what I mean? Like whatever they saw either on my portfolio site or online somewhere, they saw something that inspired them and they wanted something like that. And I knew that with the amount of time that it would require to do something like that, I just didn't have that kind of time to put into it. So ultimately, I wasn't really going to deliver something that was going to meet their expectations. So saying yes and not delivering on value wouldn't have been very helpful at all. In fact, it would have been disappointing. I think another reason why it's hard to say no is because a lot of times the thing that's in front of us is just enticing.
Yeah, those are brownies. Peppermint brownies. They have a peppermint frosting over the top.
I'll do one cinnamon and then one chocolate chip. Let's see. Is that too big of a piece?
Smaller, please.
Here, you might like it. It might be your new favorite cookie. What do you think?
Good.
Good? It's just more difficult to say no when the thing that's right in front of you is so attractive or enticing. And that could be anything from a sweet treat or something to a high paying job. I would say not even a week ago, I had someone approach me offering me a large amount of money for a freelance gig. And while they were offering a large amount of money, it was also going to come with a large amount of work. A large amount of work that I knew I wasn't gonna have the time for. But I remember I found myself trying to justify saying yes to this, thinking, well, I could work late, I could squeeze it in here, I could get up early, I could do all of these things, trying to make space in my work schedule for this. But then I realized that saying yes to this high-paying job that seemed so attractive meant that I would end up having to say no to a bunch of other things that I had already committed to, things that I should have been focusing on. And this leads me to the person that I mentioned earlier in the video, Steve Jobs. And here's what he had to say.
And we try to focus and do very few things well. And focusing's hard because focusing doesn't mean saying yes, it means saying no. So we decide not to do a lot of things so we can focus on a few handfuls of things and do them well.
So many times, I think especially for creatives, it's a matter of saying no to the other 100 really cool ideas that you've got swirling around in your head so that you can say yes to the one idea that you should be focusing on. And I really do believe that if you find yourself wondering like, man, why am I not further ahead? Why am I not getting better at this? Or why can't I seem to finish this project or get better at this other thing? I feel like that's usually the result of saying yes to too many things instead of saying no to them and narrowing down that focus. And listen, that could be saying yes to so many things, especially as artists. I remember there was a time where I was saying yes to 3D, yes to learning how to do digital painting, yes to photography, yes to this, to that. Like there were so many things that I wanted to get good at, and I wanted to get good at all of them all at the same time. But just as Steve Jobs mentioned in that video, when you narrow down your focus onto one thing, you could make that one thing excellent. You can make that one thing really, really good. All this to say that, you know, saying no could be a difficult thing to do in life. But one thing I've learned in my life is that often the right thing to do is the harder thing to do. So now I want to ask you, like, what would you say is the hardest thing that you find difficult to say no to these days, and that you want to get better at maybe saying no to? Let me know in the comments below, and keep the fire alive, my friends. I guess I'll be honest, it wasn't very good. What is it about gluten? I don't understand. It was almost like extra chewy, which I'm all for, like, you know, the cookie.
Like the chewy part of the cookie. That's what I liked at first, but then like
there was a surprise taste at the end that wasn't. Some surprises are good, and then this one was not.